Hi, BookTube. I thought I'd make a video. I looked at my BookTube channel. It's been 2 days, and I got nothing else to do tonight. My wife is at work, and it is January the 29th. It's my wife's birthday. It is 9:01 here in West Michigan. And so, yeah, it's the 29th. My wife celebrated her 65th birthday. This year, in August 2018, I'll turn 66 if I live until August 2018. So, yeah, I say that a lot, don't I? So, yeah. It's when you make videos, you see all your flaws, your speech patterns, you see that you're going bald, and you see things that you didn't see before about your face, your expressions, how you talk. For those who watch my videos know that I pursued the office of a teaching elder or a gospel minister. If you watch my videos, you might think I was kind of naive to think that I could be a pulpit orator. I look back when those days when I was in seminary. I didn't have to, but I volunteered to go out and preach in country churches in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and I would go out and I would preach, and I taped those sermons. I've mentioned in the past that I used to carry around a little tape recorder, and I taped my sermons when I was preaching or teaching Sunday school. I taped everything that I could, and I must have been really difficult to listen to. People must have just cringed hearing me. Like I'm sure that some people here in BookTube world cringe when they watch my videos at my verbal mistakes and my flaws. And I gotta get some water. Excuse me. So yeah. But I wanted to make a video because I know, like I've said, some of my favorite people in BookTube world have stopped making videos. They were making videos every week or every 2 weeks, and all of a sudden they're gone. And I really miss them. And because I enjoyed listening to them. I liked the books that they were reading. We had the same kind of literary taste. Intelligent, articulate, smart, and then they're gone. But what can you do? That's the way BookTube world is. People come and go, but I'm not going to go. I don't know, I got something in my throat. Anyway, so today, as I mentioned, I started doing another shift at the library used bookstore here in town. In Holland is the Hurd District Public Library. It's a big library. They must check out over 1 million books every year. It's a main library. It's a big 3-story, well, it has a lower level and I think it's almost 3 stories. Anyway, it's a big library. And they have a used bookstore, and they have a cafe and all kinds of activities. And I volunteer at the Book Nook, the library used bookstore. And now I'm not only volunteering on Fridays from 10 to 1, but now I'm going to do another shift on Monday, 10 to 1, because some volunteers have retired. And today, when I go to the Book Nook, I get books, I buy books, I get a free book. My free book I got today was Making of the President, 1964, A Narrative History of American Politics and Action by Theodore H. I showed you that last Friday I got this book, The Making of the President, 1960, by Theodore H. White. This goes up until I think it ends. Oh, I don't know. I think it ends right before the assassination of Kennedy, and this starts at the assassination of Kennedy, the death and the unreason. So when I was at the Book Nook today, I read the section right after Kennedy was assassinated and that Lyndon B. Johnson had to take over. He was the vice president with Kennedy, and immediately when Kennedy was assassinated, they swore Lyndon B. Johnson into the office of president. And it was very fascinating reading those hours and that month after the assassination of Kennedy, the shock that the nation was going through and the shock that was going throughout the White House. And then Lyndon B. Johnson had to take reign of this nation and take it through those very dark days. It was very fascinating. And then I bought a book called The Wonder by Alma Donahue, and I realized when I went on my library thing to catalog this, I already had it. It had a different cover, so I'll take this back to the Book Nook Friday. And then I bought this. It's a hodgepodge of biographical material on Albert Einstein. For those who know, I collect books on Einstein, biographies, novels, historical fiction, and I came across this and just a bunch of odd things. So I got that. There's a picture of Einstein in the back. And then I picked this book up. It's by an English Renaissance scholar on the art of memory. The art of memory is the classic study of how people learn to retain vast stores of knowledge before the invention of the printed page. In it, Francis A. Yates, who wrote this, traces the art of memory from its treatment by Greek orators through the Gothic transformations in the Middle Ages and to the occult forms it took in the Renaissance, and finally to its use in the 17th century. This book, the first to relate the art of memory to the history of culture as a whole, was revolutionary when it first appeared and continues to mesmerize readers with its lucid and revelatory insights. I got this for $1. Oh, I was mentioning these books by Theodore H. White. I also have this book by Theodore H. White, Breach of Faith, The Fall of Richard Nixon. Last year I was doing, for about a month, I read a lot of stuff on the Watergate and Richard Nixon and the whole Watergate fiasco. So I was reading this. So that's what I got at the Book Nook. That's what I was reading at the Book Nook. And so, yeah. I was thinking a word that comes to my mind right now about where I'm at in my reading life is the word repulsion. I'm repelled. And what I mean by that is that for some reason I can't get into any one particular book. The books that I was reading a week ago or 2 weeks ago, every time I go to look at them or try to read them, I get this kind of repulsion. I can't get myself to read them. So I'm finding myself just reading. I'm like a bee buzzing around a bunch of flowers and sucking a little nectar here and there. But I haven't really focused on anything. I don't know. I'm kind of still out of it. My brain is kind of just wants to hibernate. I don't really know. I do read, but I can't sit down and read the books that I was reading, like that novel, The Dark Man's, and that biography on author Schlesinger Jr., and I was reading some crime novel, and I was reading some other books, and I just can't get into them. So I just kind of read here and there. Today I read, like I said, I've been reading here and there. I was reading today Paul and the Law, Keeping the Commandments of God by Brian S. Rosner. reason why I got this out is because I've been reading this a book on the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses. I'm going through this book. I didn't bring it with me. I left it on my desk in my study. But I was reading about the Exodus in that book and about the giving of the 10 Commandments and the law. And that's been always a fascinating subject for me as a student of the Bible, is the Torah and how it is set forth in the, not only in the Old Testament, the nation of Israel, but how with the coming of Jesus, the Messiah, how he ushered in the new covenant, and how we're no longer under the law of Moses, but under the law of Christ. And I was reading about that today. Here, there's a chapter in this book called Under the Law of Christ, Replacement of the Law. So I was reading that. I've read this, parts of it. I got this, I think this came out in, 2013, and I just read it and reread it and read sections. It's a really good book on understanding Paul and the law. If you read the New Testament and you read the Pauline epistles, the writings of the Apostle Paul, there's a lot of discussion on the on the Torah and the law, and that's a whole subject I could do a video on, but I'm not going to do that. And I took this with me to the Book Nook today. This is volume 3 of the works of William Perkins, the father of English Puritanism. He lived from 1558 to 1602. The reason why I got this is that I've been reading a commentary in the Epistle of Hebrews in the Reformation Commentary series, and I thought about reading Perkins' commentary on chapter 11 of Hebrews. It's called The Cloud of Faithful Witness Leading to the Heavenly Canaan, or a commentary upon the 11th chapter of Hebrews, preached in Cambridge by the godly and judicious divine M. William Perkins. This was published in 1609. This is a reprint. So I thought I might read it. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of like buzzing around like a bee. And then today I read, I showed you, I was reading the section on the Heidelberg Catechism, the questions dealing with the law, the 10 Commandments. If you go to a Dutch Reformed church, they have the Heidelberg Catechism, and there's 52 days in the Heidelberg Catechism, and when you come to Lord's Day 34, there is a preamble to the law, which is, and God spake all these words, saying, and then you have, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. I am the Lord thy God who has brought thee out, anyway. So I was reading that because I've been thinking about the Old Testament Torah and the 10 Commandments, and I just read this. And I got this book in the mail the other day. From heaven he came down and sought her. Definitive Atonement, an historical, biblical, and theological and pastoral perspective, edited by David Gibson and Jonathan Gibson. I read in here an essay, that the New Covenant Work of Christ, Priesthood, Atonement, and Intercession by Stephen J. Willem. I read that. And then I'm going to start reading the first essay in this book, Sacred Theology and the Reading of the Divine Word, Mapping the Doctrine of Definitive Atonement by David Gibson, Jonathan Gibson. So I'm going to read that either tomorrow morning or tonight, or I might just, like I said, I'm kind of out of it. So I might not read anything. I did get out to look at this evening also. This is Richard St. Victor on the Trinity. Richard St. Victor he lived like in the 13th century. I think that's what it was, the 13th century, if I remember correctly. This is his treatise on the Trinity. It's translated out of Latin. I bought this 2 years ago. I used to go to this bookstore in Grand Rapids called Erdman's Bookstore. And when I would go there, which was, I would buy a commentary. I would buy some biblical studies, something Old and New Testament. I would buy something on Eastern Orthodoxy, and then I would buy something on medieval theology. And this is what I bought. This is English translation and commentary, put out, I think it was translated by Ruben Angelici, which is Richard St. Victor on the Trinity. I was looking for this book a couple of weeks ago down the lower level, and I couldn't find it. And this evening I was looking at my books on the historical Jesus, and there it was in that section. So I just thought I'd get it out, just glance at it, like a little bee buzzing around. So that's what's going on in my book world as far as my diary. January 2018, on the 29th of January, I ended on page 73. So tomorrow morning, on January the 30th, if I don't write anything tonight, I'll be on page 74 in my 2018 January diary. So yeah, today is a Monday, so they call this Monday Reads. I call this Monday Reads. So I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you're not sick with this flu that's going throughout this what's the word? Epidemic? It's an epidemic of flu, and it's killing all kinds of people, young people, older people. So get your flu shot, which I have not done. So I'm putting myself at risk. Last year I did get a flu shot because I had a physical. I had a physical scheduled for next week, and I canceled it because I don't like going to the doctor, and I rescheduled until April, into the springtime. So I thank you for the new subscribers. I thank you for the comments. Hope you're all doing well. You're not sick. I hope you're having a good reading weekend and a good reading week. And if I might make a video tomorrow night. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I'll sign off. And until next time, bye.